Well, everybody, welcome to this HCTalk podcast. As always, I'm your host, Lance Gormley, and our guest on the program today is Andy Ortiz, who we are going to put his official cap of USD 373 school board member currently on. How are you doing today, Andy?
I'm doing really good.
Good, yeah. Very good. Okay, so we're doing a series about people that are running for election. I've got some city commissioners, city council members, mayors, the whole thing, and we're wrapping this up with a few people that are doing running for USD 373 school board. But I do want to do something just slightly different with you. If you haven't been out here on the program to do the traditional, let's find out where you hail from, where you grew up, what brought you to where you are today. We haven't done that with you yet, Andy. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. We're going to start out just a little bit different than the other ones that have been on before. And I just got to ask, okay, where you hail from, Andy? Where'd you grow up? Where were you born? How'd you find yourself in Newton, Kansas, America?
Well, it's a good question. Thank you for asking it. I'm from San Antonio, Texas, originally. I grew up in an amazing neighborhood with some wonderful people, a lot of great mentors and coaches and family. We had probably, before I was born there, 20 years in that neighborhood. So by the time I was there, we kind of knew, my family knew all the other families in the area. And back then it was real different. It was like an Air Force. We were by the Air Force base, so there's a lot of military families, and it's just a different feel. I mean, I loved it. I grew up in the perfect time and the perfect place for me, and the kind of place where the national anthem or, every time the base would get out at 5 o'clock, they would play over the horns in the neighborhood, and everybody would stop and cars would pull over and people would get out of their cars and put their hand over their heart, and we would be kids playing out in the front, and all the kids would stop and pay respects. And it was just how I grew up and the place I grew up and the people I grew up around, and I loved that, and I didn't realize how rare that was. So grew up in the hood, because if you know where military bases are around that area, it's usually what it is, right? And I think at the time was like the 6th largest city in the United States. I had no idea. I had zero clues. I was just a kid growing up and having fun with my friends, right? But grew up there, got into sports, had some amazing coaches and mentors along the way, and people that I love to this day that I check in with often. Very blessed by those guys and everything they did for me. And grew up in a Baptist church there. A lot of history there as well. My grandfathers were both Baptist ministers. And anyways, I grew up spending a lot of time at the church, mowing lawns, fixing air conditioners, hanging out with my friends that were from there, a Wednesday night youth group stuff, and the whole deal, and really loved it. There was a point in time when we didn't have TVs, right? I kind of grew up in that environment where TV wasn't allowed in the house, and if you did have a TV, you were supposed to just watch sports. Pretty interesting all the way around. Ended up getting a football scholarship and coming to Bethel College, which that's why I'm wearing this today.
Go Threshers, right?
Yeah. They one of the guys who made a phone call that recruited me was from a similar area next to where I grew up. He kind of knew more so what that's like. And so grateful that he gave me the opportunity, called me and recruited me to come to Bethel College. I had a lot of connections from people that were coaching me at the time that played NAIA, Kansas Wesleyan, and other places. So that was familiar to the group of people that were around me. And I was a very hard worker, but not the best athlete. I was probably just above average as an athlete, but just good enough to play college ball. And I was a decent linebacker. I think I was first team All-City and second team All-State. And so in Texas, that's not bad, right? It's not great either because I wasn't first, right? I was the first loser.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I really enjoyed the defensive side of the ball. I was a quarterback as well, and a punter, but defense and being a linebacker, it just fit for me. I like to hunt the ball down. I used to like to meet people in the A gap, especially when there was big fullbacks. I really got a thrill out of meeting them head on and causing a problem in there. And it's just how I was wired. It was the place that I could be really mean and not get in trouble for it, and I used it to the fullest. So come to college, Bethel College, really good to me, great community of people. Again, Ben Benavides, I love you, dude. Thank you so much. Without him, I wouldn't be here right now. And without this program, the group of friends and the network I have wouldn't exist outside of that area that I grew up in. And a lot of the guys, matter of fact, there's a guy coaching the school that we would be going to that came up to Bethel College. He says because of me. And he broke the rushing record at Bethel College. And he is now the head football coach in the school that we went to and doing great things. And people are beating him up right now. They're having a bad season. And I just love you, Philip. Keep working hard, man.
Texas and football.
Yeah, it's a thing, man. It's a thing. And it's a lot of pressure, right? Yeah. But and you'll get those people that just do what they do. But they don't know the track and the path and all the other things. And some of them are just jealous, frankly, because he did what he did and he's doing what he's doing. And they wish they could do what he does. Most people couldn't hold a candle to him. But he's out there doing great things. So things like that, you know, you just, I'm so grateful for the life I've lived and the people that I have around me. And San Antonio is where I hail from. And but I've been here now 27 years. And I was only in San Antonio 19 years.
Right. So do you, okay, so two-part question. One, when you say that, having been here longer than there, what is home, right? And then also just I'm interested in the continuation of, you went to Bethel. What did you study there? What degree did you earn? So kind of a two-parter, but yeah, if you want one to go before the other or vice versa.
Studied secondary ed special education. Did not end up earning my degree. I left after on basically the last year. There was no need at the time. I kind of knew where I wanted to go. I was in social work. I got a job at 20 when I was supposed to be 21, but they allowed me to get in because I had some friends that worked at Youthville at the time, which is now Ember Hope. So I got a job there, and I thought maybe I'll get into social work instead of teaching because I did have a knack for that. As I was working there, I started, I got to be careful how I say this, but there were people that were a lot older than me that were in their 40s, 50s, and they didn't have the lifestyle that I wanted. And they weren't making very much more money than I was. And I started looking at things differently at that time. And it had to probably do with reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad and getting a hold of some business books right at that time. For the first time in my life, getting content like that I'd never seen before. I just wanted to coach and teach because that's what the successful people in my life did. And that's what I wanted to do because that's what success looked like to me. They had refrigerators that had ice that came out of them, right? Yeah. They had nice cars with good tires. They all kind of left our neighborhood to go to their places and would drive back in. And when you lock the gates, you know, when their cars get in the gate, I didn't realize what that meant to them at the time. Yeah. I just thought that's just how you lived. And I realized through them, there was a whole nother life out there. And I thought, I want that life. I want to be able to drive to the neighborhoods they live in, right? Live in the houses that they live in. And I had a coach in particular take me when his house was getting built. One of the most amazing things somebody could have did for me. I think he knew what he was doing. And he's actually one of the ones that helped recruit me here. He went to Kansas Wesleyan. The long story, it's the ghetto story. My uncle was a very popular and highly sought after football player. Didn't end up getting out of the neighborhood. He's living on the streets, I think, now, there in our neighborhood, and they call him Famous Amos. It's like one of them neighborhood tragedy stories. Yeah. And that's my uncle that I looked up to growing up. And that was one of his great friends. And so he did everything he could to get me out of there. Yeah. And I'm so grateful for that. So I've had these types of situations and these people that, for some reason, they rallied around me and gave me opportunity. I don't know how far I should go into some of those stories, but at the end of the day, I came to Newton, Kansas and Bethel College, and here we are. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and I know you as a businessman and an entrepreneur, and I would look at you, Andy, and I would say that you are very successful. You know, we talk about situations where we have people in our lives, and we look to them and say, you know, I want to mimic what they did? What in this mentorship situation? And I think as you get older, that it's yeah, there's some mentorship there, but we often think of mentors as people that are 20 years older than us. So then if it's a closer age demographic that you're dealing with, it becomes that person can be my friend. And I truly believe in the saying, show me your friends and I'll tell you your future. So if you're not placing yourself around people that you see success in to learn how to be successful in that way, then, well, you're going to place yourself around people that maybe are not as successful as you'd want to be. And then the outcome is going to be that you'll be in the same boat that you were 10 years before. So,
right.
As far as like I said, I know you to be somebody who's a successful businessman and an entrepreneur. We struck up a relationship a few years back. I think you saw that I really had a heart to serve and wanted to serve, but also saw there was areas that I could improve. And so you've poured into my life. Just for the record of anybody listening, I would say that Andy is a mentor to me, but yet at the same time more of a friend. And so however those relationship dynamics move forward. But if you want to cover some about what you do in business and how you've found yourself to this place, we can do that. But pretty quickly, I'd like to just transition over into you wanting to be in service at the school board level and how that happens. So do you care if I just jump into the school board?
No, let's go straight into that.
So just real briefly talk about how you got involved, because the first time you didn't run for an election, there was an open position, if I remember correctly. What would possess you to want to put your name in the hat to be appointed to an open board seat? I guess I want to know the why behind that.
Yeah, that's really good. Honestly, I've been asked way before I said yes, many election seasons, to get on the school board and actually run for city commission at one point. And I was a hell no real quick. There was just no way. And I thought these are things I might have done later. And frankly, the reason I thought that way is because I felt like I needed more preparation, and I know where my work life is at and my kids and the age that they are in. And I know how much time I would want to commit to something like this. And I just couldn't fit it in my brain. And it just wasn't a season for me to do so. So there was probably 4 or 5 election cycles when I said no to several people that would say, hey, why don't you throw your hat in? And frankly, I've served on the library board. I've served on more than half a dozen city committees for the city. I've served on committees for the school board. I've served on other boards in the community, leadership teams that are through the Chamber of Commerce, and several committees through the Chamber of Commerce. So I have a pretty vast network in serving and sitting at the table and making decisions for 20 years before I said yes. And I still felt like I wasn't ready. And I think that's really important as we move our community forward, to know that there's people that run for one small purpose. And it doesn't mean it doesn't matter, but we really have to be careful when we're auditing and looking at the leaders of our community. Is that the person you want to be selling your community? Are they personable? Are they open-minded? Do they just want what they want? Or are they willing to debate and collaborate and to build things? Have they built something? And how do they go about doing that? What is the evidence of their success and their own way of acting out in public, not in personal stuff, which you never see and you don't know the reality? What is the evidence of what have they built? Have they stood up any organizations? Have they stood next to any organizations? Will you go to 10 people that they've served with and all of them or most of them say rock star or yes? And I see a lot of people coming and going. I've seen people almost get elected that just moved here from other states that weren't even supposed to be running in the area that they were running, and had to literally start trying to move before the election was over because people found out, because people just don't know. I mean, I've seen a lot of crazy stuff happen. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's like, we have to be careful when we elect people. So my whole point is, even after 20 years of service, I finally said yes. In smaller groups, I was a treasurer for Andy Harder on his campaign, which I tell Andy I should have never did that because he put my name on his sign, and I said no the first 2 times he asked me. Yeah. I said no. Love you, but no. And then he called me, come on, no. I can't help you. There's nothing I can do for you. I'm way too busy. It's just not in my world right now. I don't want to put up with the stuff that you have to put up with because frankly, I could be who I can be sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I got a question. I want to interject something. I don't want to stop you or your train of thought, but trying to understand, you had mentioned that years and years you had served, and I'll call that background service, right? But you're up front. But you're serving in all these different ways and capacities. What, in your mind's eye, what was the thing that kept you from throwing your hat in there? Was there some way that you perceived the serving versus the serving in that capacity? Is there a difference in your mind from getting in there and serving in a bunch of different capacities versus putting your name on the ballot and then being in that position?
So I was always asked to get on a committee, and I would say yes. And there was times I was overextended. And I started watching how these committees were operating behind the scenes and having really good mentorship and having run teams before and being somebody who was a captain of teams and people counted on, having a leadership mindset. It's overwhelming when you realize how loose some of these groups are. And the lack of production, frankly, that comes out of a lot of groups. They mean well. It's just production is and you got to learn. You get in there and you learn. But that to me is training ground as well, because you do have sharp people in all of them. It's just everybody's busy and they're doing it just because. And it's almost like a checkbox. And a lot of people do things for resumes. Frankly, I don't do that. I don't have that. Yeah. That's not something that I subscribe to, just my crazy way of living. It's way different than a lot of people, I guess, because I made one resume in my life, and that was to be on the school board. And there's times I've regretted that.
Right. Understood.
And that resume was kind of weird putting it together, frankly. Yeah. So anyways, I guess everything I've done, I was asked to do. I was beginning because of people knew that I stood up some things, actually helped build some things that are still moving on today in this community. And I'm proud of that and grateful for some of those organizations, and they've done way better than I could have ever done. And they've outlived that group that started it, right? And me being one of those people. And there's several things like that are serving in the community right now that I was able to be a part of. But again, in that process, you realize that sometimes there's a lot of wasted time in there. You get to get on a committee and you have certain skill sets, and they're like, well, if I just had the website, and you build it overnight, all-nighter at that time, because of the way technology was back then. It's not like it is now. Yeah. Way different. Well, if we just had an identity, so you put together a logo.
Yeah.
Well, if we just had these cards, so you put together a card. Well, if we just, and you keep shoving these things down into the system, and you realize nobody really wants to do anything. I mean, we want to with our mouths, but not with our feet. And those are two different things. And that's what I learned, is you got to be real choosy of what groups you get involved with and what systems that you connect to, because most of them wouldn't run at a pace that, again, I remember getting invited to a group one time, and hey, we really need you on our board. No, I really don't have time. Oh, come on. Well, how about I go to 2 or 3 meetings and look at what you're doing, and maybe after that we can have a discussion. Is that okay with you? This is my normal thing, because I've done it dozens of times. So I go to a meeting, and they are saying, oh, we sold X amount of this product, and we made $740 some dollars or whatever. It was $740 whatever dollars. And I said, oh, this is meeting number 1. And I said, Well, how much did the meat cost? Huh? Yeah, who donated the meat? Or how did you get the meat? Well, so-and-so bought it. Oh, okay. Well, how much did the tortillas cost? Oh, how much gas did we spend? How much time did you put into it? It ended up being like, it was more of a community building effort. Yeah. They didn't make no money.
Yeah.
And I was not invited back.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to be ugly. But, you know, when you're in those positions, that's what happens. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to be that person for myself too, frankly, because I'm not trying to be ugly. I'm just trying to say this is what's not you made. This is just a byproduct of a bunch of people doing a lot of things that might have been cheaper if everybody just donated. We would have had a lot more time to do other things. Yeah. But that's the stuff that most people won't say that I'll say. That's why I get in trouble sometimes, but I don't mean it in a bad way, right?
Yeah.
I mean it just because I don't want to waste my time because I have a lot going on all the time. There's teams moving right now that are counting on me to do what I need to do, right? There's opportunities out there right now that need information for me to take those things to the next level. We had a project 2 months ago. We drove into a place where the building was bones. Drove away Friday, and it was amazing. And there was a lot in between that with a lot of different teams and people and arguments and change orders. And but when you walk away and it's done, you know, that takes reps to be able to do stuff like that. Yeah. And so I appreciate that part of the process. I love to build things. I love to challenge as we move through things to be the most efficient, to be able to shift on a dime and be creative while you're in the middle of the chaos, right? I like to sit and quiet myself and go, okay, how do I plug that A gap amongst everything else that's going on and do my job? And my job is to plug that A gap. And I'm going to meet that guy right there as viciously as I can to make sure that my job is done. And when you have that kind of mindset, it's not for everybody,
yeah.
Right?
Well, and it goes back to the age-old saying of the work is much and the hands are few, or the work is heavy but the hands are light, you know, type of a thing. Going with you'd mentioned that the first time you ever put a resume together was to apply to be appointed to the school board. Take me back to where your headspace was at that point in time. I'm going to assume that you still had reservations about that situation and knowing that you wanted to help in that way. That's why you put that application in there. Upon getting the call or the email, however that was, that said, hey, you were selected to be to fill this position or to participate in this role.
Would you put your name in the hat, kind of was how that went down.
Yeah, and then the board then decides, right, which one that they both can all agree on, or whatever the case may be. When you were accepted that position and you sat down in the seat the first time, what was one of the things that you immediately identified as a challenge that the board was facing, and how were you able to contribute to overcoming that challenge?
Well, it's perceived challenge, right? It was some shadiness, honestly, at the beginning. And I came in with preconceived notions and a bad attitude towards what I thought things were. And that was sold to me because people knew where I was at that time politically. And I am a pretty conservative individual, just on the table, for the most part. A little socially somewhat liberal, but pretty conservative in all other ways of my life, especially when it comes to running my business and things like that. I came in under that, at that time was right before COVID. So when I started serving, COVID hit. So that was my hello, here we go. And
that's a huge challenge.
It was, I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
Right? Because this is what I thought it would be anyways, because that's how I roll.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think we had like 50 something meetings that year or something 56, you know, every time something would come down from the government and we had to make a shift. And, you know, and everybody that knows me, after about 40 days, I was done with all the masks and stuff. I smelt some weirdness out in there in the ether, which we know now, what we know, but we didn't know it at the time. But I still had to play ball and suck up some stuff. Being from the private sector, I just didn't like it. But, I had to be a team player. Thank God I had that in my background. I did what I had to do. But there was some political heaviness, and it still exists in the public school system. And people will say it's not political, it's nonpartisan. That's crap. That's just not honest. I mean, I could show you data and information. You can go to the website for the NEA and look at what they support and how they message and the candidates that they support. And it's like 99% Democrat, right? To the point where they had like Kamala and Tim Walz on their front page, right? And then they have a big forum in Chicago where they're the speakers, or Kamala's the speaker, but they're not partisan, right? Yeah. I mean, it's just such crap on so many levels. And that pissed me off. And I was tired of that. And I knew that was going on. And I was going to change it, And so that's the vein in which I was recruited. So unfortunately, it was unhealthy from the get-go.
Okay, so would you just kind of explain in your perspective, because you operate in the private sector a lot with business, a lot of people
almost always
they operate in the private sector, and it's a very niche situation where you then have to operate in the public sector. So for you operating in the private sector, then coming into a situation where now you're an elected official or a school board member, because of course it was by appointment at that time, then what kind of worldview shift did you have to experience in order to look at being in that position as a public official versus in your own life, it's a private sector endeavor?
So the way I'll say this is I was too far one way, and I didn't even know it. Everything that surrounded me and everybody that I'm with every day was that way. Just capitalist, just contracts and negotiations, and there's never a failure. There's a how do we work through this, around this, over this without worrying about the government.
Right.
The boundaries on this project are what me and you put on it, and let's just get it done, and let's have some agreements and go. You do your part, I do my part, and then if you don't do your part, we'll have those discussions when we need to, because your part relies on me doing my part, et cetera, right? So you got to have a working relationship, whether it's nice or not. You got to get the job done. Public sector is very different. You have to serve. You have to provide services. People can be spitting in your face trying to sue you and everything else, and you have to take that and do the best you can with all the rules, regulations to move forward. And you're also dealing with people. You're not flipping burgers. So it's a very different thing. And, one of the most humbling experiences I had, and at first I would get pissed off with some of these conversations I would have with people because of the mindset. I was all about, where's the ROI on that? Where is the value of this? Just 100%, focused on one side. And what I learned is we get to do a lot of amazing things with public monies and provide services to people that we normally wouldn't be able to serve if we didn't have that availability. And that's what makes America amazing. And it's what gives us the soul, if you will, and what we get to do. An example would be, let's just say you had a kiddo who needs $1,200 for an iPad to give them a voice. What is that worth? And imagine not having those funds available at that time. That's one of hundreds of situations that happen every day in our buildings, where we get to do things that what's the ROI of that? Can you tell me that? And you ask people, what is the value of giving kids skills that normally wouldn't have them, or an opportunity to work and provide for themselves and help their families out, if we didn't have certain programs to serve, and all that costs money, right? And private schools don't have to do that, And a matter of fact, we are mandated, if a kid lives within our zone, if they have needs, special needs that cost a lot of money, where do you think they get those needs met?
In public schools.
That's right. We have to. We can't say no. We're band-aided. And so it hurts sometimes, but it's a good kind of hurt. It's the kind of hurt you want to fight for. And that's the other side that I've learned along the way. And the humbling part of being on the school board is really coming more to the middle of what that really means and what it is to be able to be in a position to serve in that way. And knowing that not everything is 100% X's and O's and spreadsheets. We're dealing with people in our lives and situations that will balance themselves out in the future if we do the right things now to support them, to get them on the right path and track to the best of our ability, right, with the system that we have, which needs a lot of work, by the way. So coming in, I was very one-sided, very politically driven, very staunched in my beliefs. But as I got more information and as I've been able to see the bigger picture, it's been amazing to me how I've been able to grow and challenge myself and challenge people around me that haven't had the experience. So I feel like it's my responsibility to take that information to those people and say, hold your horses. There's a lot here that we didn't understand. And I'm still learning, but I feel like now a better steward of the public school system. I've been more bought in now than ever before. And I know the importance of it, but I also know we need to do things differently, and we need some major revamps and overhauls because our society is just so different right now.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I will agree with that. I think one of the most under-discussed or under-identified, if you want to look at it that way, is that in many ways our school system systems, the way we teach kids, has not changed a lot over the last 20, 40, 60 years. We're still holding to the same model, which, not saying that, this is my opinion, not yours, obviously, but that, the way that the individuals that are utilizing the public school system, these youth, the times have changed from 20, 40, 60 years ago. And so thereby, I'm a firm believer that in many ways we have to mold and shape our school system in order to adequately educate the students of today for the future of tomorrow. So that's me. I'll throw that out there. That's not you. Okay. So if you want to get on anybody, I said it and he didn't, but no, still. Okay. So, after you were appointed and did COVID, cause I got to say that I think the most challenged individuals, or probably the most challenging group of public officials during that time would have been school board members, because you're dealing with people's kids, you're dealing with people's policies. I mean, it's one thing to be a city commissioner or council member at that time, a entirely different one to be a state legislator, a federal legislator or Congress, all that. But when you get down to the level of school board member, I couldn't even imagine the weight and the challenge of that policy making when it comes to what you're supposed to do in this unprecedented situation or event that we all know took place and can only, look back and say, well, hindsight's 2020. So from there, you then chose to run for election again.
Yeah.
And you were successful in getting a 4-year term.
Yep.
At that point in time, you had kind of had your feet wet. You went through COVID, which was a huge challenge. I'm understanding that from what you just said, you started to have a worldview shift, or had to look at things differently from where you were to where you are now, and so you have a better understanding. You have a better understanding of what your role is, your position. You started to learn a little bit, and it takes years to do that. At that point in time, what did you see as the challenges going forward? Looking at COVID in the rearview mirror, being elected at that point in time, having a better understanding of the duties and changing your worldview to better accommodate going forward what you see as what needs to happen in the school system to better help our children.
I think first is getting over my own biases and understanding that because of this thing right here that we have, right? That we have other responsibilities other than what I want and how I choose to see the world. And so how do you balance that, right? Knowing that it's there, right? my faith and how I choose to see the world and some of my nuances that I choose to live by to the best of my ability, because I don't get it right all the time, for sure. Anybody that knows me knows that. But I think the biggest challenge is me getting over my ego, my own self-perceptions, and learning that I am trying my best to make decisions for the greater good of the whole, not just what I want, which is easy to do when you get drunk with your own thoughts without any checks and balances, because people get a title and they become self-indulged. I call it, some people get drunk off power. And a lot of people don't know how to handle that, especially if you've never been in a leadership position before, or just people just think of titles, it makes them something, right? And they have that title. And there's a lot of, everyday folk like me that walk around and go, wow, that person's the CEO of whatever, so that must mean they're better than me. Yeah, it's crap, right? It's not the case, but a lot of people see the world that way. And I can tell you, when I'm dressed up and going into executive meetings, when I'm walking through San Antonio or Chicago or somewhere like that and going into, people do treat me different when I'm dressed a certain way than they do when I'm with you right now, how I am in my everyday life. And that's nothing that I've done differently. It's just how I present myself. But people think a title gives them the ability to do that in everyday life. So I think the first thing is just being self-aware. And the question was something along the lines of, how did I see it?
Yeah, it's just a challenge, looking in the rearview mirror of all these things that you had overcome. What was something that you saw going into your first elected term as a challenge that needed to be overcome?
Myself.
Once again,
my own way of thinking.
Just a continued self-betterment, a continued understanding that things are going to change, and you're just going to have to continue to evolve as a human.
Right. And also look at all the families that you're trying your best to make decisions for, not just the ones that think like yours, right? Because we don't have that right. And we can act stupid and try, but people smell it. Yeah. They see it eventually. And that's just not, I'm trying to be a long-term thinker. And I think just really realizing that it doesn't mean you have to throw out the baby with the bathwater and compromise yourself, right? I tell people this all the time. There's a difference between preferences and principles. Okay. And I hold my principles, and people that know me know that, right? But a lot of people try to make everything a principle. Every preference that they have is a principle, and they're going to fight like hell for it to the end. And there's no need to, right? Got to pick your battles wisely. And I'm really careful about not barking at everything that swings and passes by me. That way, when I do bark at something, there's a reason for it.
Yeah. Well, and I got to say, to the audience, if you hear the rain on the tin roof, it is not static. We've said before that on the program, it's part of the ambiance. So, of course, this is great. So just bear with us as the Mother Nature decides to do what it does to us, which is great. I don't think anybody can complain at rain unless, of course, it's this year.
Yeah.
So bear with us on that. Okay, moving forward, Andy, I know you're not somebody that wants to take personal responsibility for, or let's say you're not somebody that says, oh, well, this happened and you can point the finger at me because I made it happen. I know you not to be that type of individual, but I want to get into, after, let's say, the appointment, serving there, being elected, you're coming up on 4 years of being an elected official, two-side coin. What do you think was one of the greatest challenges that you as a board had to face during the last 4 years? And then also, what do you think is one of the most successful things that were able to come out of the board over the last 4 years?
Two very good questions. One of the most challenging things for me personally was closing Walton down. I think if you look at the evidence and you're a data person, right? People say they're data people. There's no way you can be a data person and think that's a good idea at this point. Now where we're sitting today, we actually might have to shrink some more, frankly. And that's hard to even say out loud because you don't want to manifest things, right? But the reality is that's the truth. So if I was to go to the community, and I've said this before, and say, hey, let's open up another elementary school building, what would they look at me like? Probably like I'm not very sharp, right? Yeah. I could use other words, but I won't. Just say not very sharp. Those are realities that we knew a long time ago. But when you go into something to say, how do we make this work? And you can't find a way to make it work, and people are refusing to talk about it. That was real hard for me to deal with, is realize that that's just how people do things when you're in this situation, right? If you're in a personal capacity, or you're taking personal responsibility for your stuff, and you're willing to go do the work that it takes to make it happen, so be it. But in this situation, it's not how it works. You're dealing with somebody else's car, and you're just going to turn it back in with no gas in it and say, screw you, and walk away. And that's the kind of person you want to be. That's how I see it. And I just don't think that's right. And we all can fall into those things from time to time in our lives, right? Not thinking. But that was a pretty big one. It was really hard. My kids went to school there. There was people that got real nasty and protective over that. And I do understand that. I know it's par for the course. And any school that's closed in other communities, it's just how it works, right? And then you get the conspiracy theory people out there that start making up their stuff and never have accountability for it, right? Which that makes it hard for me too, because I'm that guy that wants to show up and confront it, which is not always right, but that's just who I am. And thank God I've been able to let all that go. But, getting emails at 10 o'clock at night when you know somebody's liquored up and really just wanting them to say, meet me over here, it's kind of hard, because I know how that would go and I ain't afraid of it. But, some people just run out the mouth, and it's hard for me to deal with that type of person. They're just kind of cowardice and pansies. And of course, they would never say it to my face, but they're real cool to say it in other places. The funniest thing is when you see one of them in public and you go up to them and you just look them straight in the eye, and it's kind of funny to see how that works. But
you're best friends at that point in time.
It's interesting how that works. I'm just going to say it.
Social media, we said it over and over, not interrupt, social media, and sitting behind, just the basic being able to sit behind some kind of a digital device and communicate or project onto someone else your thoughts in that moment without the accountability to follow is going to be the death of us. But okay.
I'm with you, Andy. There's a lot of fake out there, brother. A lot of fake.
Oh yeah. People get real tough behind a keyboard.
Yeah, for sure.
I love it. I've experienced it in my own life, so I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
I'm down for some chipped teeth if that's what it takes. You know what I'm saying? I've been there before, and most people have no clue, but whatever.
I'm thinking back to a forum that I remember having, and it was 4 years ago, and there was a lot of discussion about public officials and the safety and the threats that were being made from the public to not just USD 373 school board members, but across the nation, right? And you stood up there, and I'm gonna, loosely quote you, but you said, "I'm not worried about it. If you want to go meet me in public somewhere, or you want to have a conversation while I'm at the grocery store, then be my guest."
Probably. That's a flavor.
You're like, I don't need any security. I signed up for this, or whatever. I stand on what I do and who I am as an individual.
Yeah, for sure.
Successes, Andy. To come in this way, it's always important to talk about challenges, but I always look at the flip side, which is successes. Because if we focus on nothing but the challenges, and sometimes the challenges are what turn into successes, but we've got to maintain positivity. And I believe that if we are able to look at our challenges that we have and address them appropriately, but also give ourselves credit for where there's been some successes, then it helps us to balance that out, and it allows us to move forward with a positive mindset. So give me at least one success that you feel over the last 4 years that you can hang your hat on, or that the board can hang their hat on, as far as to look forward to and to say, hey, we did this right?
Well, I think things were a couple years there where it went so bad for a lot of reasons, because in the Railer Way was another spinoff, and all that came all at the same time, and that was really tough. But I think the successes are still maturing out of those bad situations and how people chose to handle that. And people are seeing that for what it is, right? You're supposed to go with the team once you make a vote, and then you move forward together, right? It's nice to say it until you're the one on the other side of that chooses not to do that. and then puts policy in order, worried about me going to the media and stuff, but then you end up being the one to do it, right? When it's inconvenient for you, right? And we have those kind of things that happen, and people in situations that, I mean, it's obvious they shouldn't be there. And at the end of the day, when you see that, it's other people seeing it with you not having to say anything. And I think that's a success where people start now actively recruiting better people and talking about how we do need to have better people in office, and making programs like Ready to Run. That's a huge success for the future of our community. And that's going to take about 4 or 5 years to really get on its feet. And I know that's tough and people don't want to hear that, but that's good, because now we have a path to do something better, where we can then seek out people that have served over 20 different groups and boards before they choose to get on one that frankly has high stakes for our community, and has real big consequences when we don't do it right. Because I said it at the last forum that we were at, the actions of our board there for a while really hurt the reputation of our district, and that's obvious. When we were handling that, we weren't handling it in a way with that it was just what people want to win at all cost. And that's what happens. There's times in athletics and things when, hey, if that's the hat you want to put on, especially in an individual sport, have at it. But this is a team freaking sport. What are you willing to do to your team? And what are you not seeing? Because sometimes the win is long term. It's not right here, right now. And there's people that just don't get that. And we are weeding that out now. I think the community is seeing it and more aware. And the fact that we have, 3 seats opening up, only one incumbent coming back, which is good. And there's reasons for that, the dysfunction there. But we have 5 new possible board members that are going to run. And however you want to see that, I just see it as a good thing. Because there's going to be more quality, qualified people that are running for the right reasons, not because they're getting recruited by an ideology or a one reason for this group to want this person to go in and make changes when they don't realize that's how it works. It just doesn't work the way people think it does. And it's not because people are pansies and there's a lot of stuff that goes to making decisions that are tied to a decision. And if you don't know how the structure is set up and you don't know how the systems are set up, most people come in and go, oh shoot, I didn't realize that. And that happens pretty quick.
Well, yeah, there's a learning curve. I mean, anybody that's ran for any kind of public office thinks that it's going to be one way and then realize it's not. That's why you mentioned the Ready to Run thing. I think it's interesting because what I just formulated in my mind as I was thinking while you were talking is through a challenge, you chart a path to success. And then from that path to success, obviously, then you see the success. So it's like it's the mechanism that has to go into place. There has to be an identified challenge. From there has to be an identified path out of that challenge into success. And from there, then you're able to see the success. So, okay, going into you running this time and wanting to move forward and continue to serve in this capacity and way, what do you see is the greatest challenge for the future of USD 373?
Just having fresh set of eyes. And being willing to have the right team in place, and I mean that at the board level, that's going to stay out of the day-to-day in the school buildings, even though, we are responsible for things at some level. When things happen, they come at us for it, and that's okay, though. We have a team in place to take care of 95% of that stuff, right? We shouldn't be in the minutia. But to start focusing our eyes up at the state level and what we can do there to affect what criteria we have to innovate a system to do things differently, to deliver a better platform for our kids to thrive and build off of versus what we've been doing for the last 70 years. And so that's going to be something that we really need to focus on, is looking up towards the state, refining ourselves and how we approach that to go sell to them what we have so we can sell to other families what we have that's different, and show them that we are forward thinking, we're innovative, and we want the best for our kids. And we want parents to be able to trust us to run a pilot here in Newton that's going to be different. And I'll tell you this, the information's out there. There's schools out there already that are doing amazing things that you have to pay $7,500, $100,000 a year to go to.
Yeah.
We can't, per pupil, Why don't we borrow from that? And if people at that level are creating these systems, why are we just trying to bastardize it and not borrow from it? Because not all of it will transfer, but a lot of it will. How do we do that? See, we don't think like this in this world. And this is what I want to bring to the table over the next 4 years is why not us? Why not us provide the same type of platform to our kiddos that somebody else is paying $100,000 a year for? Why not us? Our people are brilliant. We have them in there. And my friend used to say some should be cloned, some should be shot, right? It's just what he said, right? And every career and every field has that. But we have some freaking rock stars that I'm telling you, we have a core group of hitters in our district that we better give them opportunity to grow and learn and walk out their dreams, which is serving the kids, because some of them could be in the private industry making six figures real easy, but they choose to stay and fight for our families and our kids for whatever reason. And I don't even want to give out names of a few of them that just come to my head right now that I want to so bad, but they wouldn't like that. That's not their personality, and a lot of them come from the Mennonite type background, so they wouldn't like that. But these people are amazing, and I went to school, or some of us went to the same school. I went to school with one of them in particular that I'm thinking about right now. I was on the soccer team. That's about as close as I can get to that. But just loves the kids, loves the pouring in part, just a great human being. We need to give them tools. We need to give them some rope. We need to innovate. And until we start having those conversations, we can sit here and argue about why we closed Walton or why we didn't close Walton 3 years ago. Or we can look over here at the state and say, hey, why are these boundaries here? What can we change to allow us to do this over here to make it legal? And then how do we do this to give you information so you can promote this to your other districts in the state, because we're actually getting good results and we want Kansas to be number one. How do we negotiate that? How do we break down barriers? How do we create and break down walls that exist today just because if you're either left or you're right, or you're this ideology or that ideology? We're spending our energy in all the wrong places rather than just saying, okay, here's the tools that we have. Here's what the future looks like to the best of our ability with what we have in place now. How do we empower our kids? Because we are working on a system that was built for a different era. And that's just the facts. 80% of the jobs these kids will be doing do not exist today. And we have an idea of kind of where they will be. I think we need to start going down that trail and blazing it. And so the challenge is getting our eyes off of the minutia, because we are conditioned to do that for a long time, and turn our energy as a school board, as elected officials, where they should be talking to other elected officials about how we can do things better. And I've already started that process, frankly.
Yeah. Okay, Andy, what does the future of USD 373 look like in your eyes?
The future of USD 373 is going to be the most innovative, creative education system that's in the state of Kansas. They are going to start looking to us to lead the way. We have so much opportunity. There's no kid out there better than any of our kids, and vice versa. But we just have to celebrate our kids differently and build a better system for them, a better car for them to get into that's just built a little different. And so we're going to change the tires. We're going to put a new motor in it. And I'm very optimistic that over these next 4 years, we're going to build relationships in a system where we're going to attract the best teachers. We're going to attract the best families. And with the industry and everything else coming behind that, we're going to be the biggest promoter of economic development because of the quality of people we're putting out. I also believe that our kids, because of the experiences they have, will want to buckle down, build and grow here, and stay here with our families. I believe we can do it. I wouldn't say it out loud if I didn't want to manifest it. I have a blueprint in my head of what it looks like. It's not going to be easy. There's going to be a lot of challenges, and we have to be careful not to fall into the conversations that we've always had that lead us to nowhere. The lawsuits that we get into that make no difference, and we continue to hold on to these things. We have to move on. Mistakes are made all the time. One of my mentors, Scott Redler, who sat right here in this chair, actually, when I was sitting where you were, He told me one time, he says, Andy, the difference between, actually, he sat there, I sat here. Guys like us, and when he said that, it meant the world to me because he's a very successful entrepreneur, one of the best, if not the best. He was the president of the National Restaurant Association for the country for quite some time. I mean, he's a hitter, right? He said, guys like us, and I was like, oh, he said us. He put me in the group. I'm weird like that. That mattered to me. He said, guys like us, we're made to make more good decisions than bad ones. It's not a matter of if and when we make a bad decision. You got to just make more good ones than bad ones. But when you make that bad decision, Andy, and this was me and him had to have a hard talk because I dropped the ball on something. And he had grace enough to coach me through and to say, this is what he told me. He says, you just got to take responsibility and move on fast. Stop looking back. And I think that's what we have to do. We got to move on fast. And we got to stop looking back. What are things presenting themselves? They've already presented themselves. Why are we going to keep thinking about how it's presenting itself? The evidence is there. It's not working. We've got to move on fast. So I'm looking forward to doing that.
All right, Andy, we're coming to the end of the program. You've seen a lot of these shows. I'm going to give you the last word to speak directly to the hearts and the minds of anybody listening. What do you got, Andy?
I've been very blessed on so many levels. And I attest that to all the people that I've been able to do life with throughout the years. Coaches, of course, my family. I have a big family down in South Texas and love the hell out of them. But I've had people that have come along my life that didn't have to. And that's why I'm speaking to this specific group. And those are the teachers and the coaches that helped me in my life. I can go down to 5th grade. I can go way further than that. But the one real big one that kind of shifted me and encouraged me in sports his name was John Carpenter. He was a semi-pro basketball player. He was my 5th grade teacher. And he kind of introduced me to a whole different way of working for something. And I really looked up to him. And he was kind of a guy I wanted to be like. And then that led to another person. His name was Robert Becerra, who was the friend to my uncle growing up. And he was the one that got out and went and became a coach and a teacher, which is big time for me, right? Looked up to him. And Faustino Ortega, they were together. Both went to school with my uncle. Both of them left, came back coaches and teachers. He ended up in the lifestyle that he ended up in. Then it was, those guys followed me. Then it was my high school coaches, et cetera. And what I'm getting at here is there was these people, these outliers in my life that I am so grateful for. And if I look back today, those people are rock stars. All the way through the guy who called me to play for this group right here that I love dearly. Make me mad sometimes with some of the little stuff that we can get into that in another day, but for the most part, they're great people. Not for the most part, they're great people. Ben's an athletic director now. He was a head football coach, which was huge. That was his goal at the place where he grew up, to help change lives. And that whole story is amazing in itself. Just his story is a rock star story of how he made it and how he made it out and how he's given back to the community now. He's now an athletic director. So now he gets to oversee and change lives in a whole different way, right? My freshman basketball coach is the superintendent at a school down there, doing amazing things. He's really killing it. The other coach I had was a superintendent. The other coach I have is an athletic director. I mean, you go down the list of all the people that have had professional athletes, in my life, and the guys who brought me up. I don't know why I got so lucky. But if it wasn't for the public school system, I wouldn't have had access to any of them. And so I would encourage people to realize what's happening in our buildings and the lives that are being changed as a result of people that aren't family pouring into your kiddos. Yeah, there's some bad stuff out there and things don't always go right. And sometimes people have a screwed up mindset that maybe want to teach your kids things they shouldn't know. But the vast majority, 90 plus percent, are just people like the ones who brought me up and who cared about me when they didn't have to, and that I call my friends today as a grown adult, that I look up to. And when I fight my butt off and I work my butt off, when it gets hard, I think about those guys, and I don't want to dishonor what they've done for me. So it allows me to work harder. And I never feel sorry for myself because I'm so grateful, and all I want to do is I want to make those guys proud. What is that worth? So the fact that I get to be in a position to nurture that type of relationship in those types of environments, man, bring it on, right? When it gets hard, bring it on. So I do have a passion for what I'm doing right now. It's kind of coming full circle for me, and I have a huge responsibility to deliver on everything that's been given to me, which is a lot. And I deserve none of it. And so I'm so grateful. And if I can just help create an environment where that continues to happen, and there's more people like me out there that have that story that say, man, without sports and activities in school, I don't know where I would be in my life. That's a huge part of the American dream, is having a platform that everybody has access to get better and to grow, to become who you want to be. And that's the public school system. So I am completely sold out. I'm grateful for all those people. They know who they are, my coaches, my teachers, my mentors. Ben, love you, dude.
You know, Andy, to whom much is given, much is required, my man. And that's what I hear you saying, is that you take that responsibility full on.
All day, every day. Grateful. And we ain't done yet.
We ain't done yet.
Nope. It's time to really get on it.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I'm going to make it happen. Your vote would be appreciated. Give me another shot. My heart's in the right place, and I'm ready to serve.
We're a work in progress, aren't we?
Absolutely.
373.
Yeah.
Okay, folks. Well, just want to say thank you for listening to this HCTalk podcast. As always, I was your host, Lance Gormley, and our guest on the program today is Andy Ortiz, who is the 373 USD 373 school board member currently, and is asking for your vote once again.
Yep.
Have a good one, everybody.